Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Observable Flutter. My name is Craig Labenz, and I'm your host as always. And today, I'm going to be getting back to my infinite zombie shooter game, which finally does have zombies. Still doesn't have any shooting, which will be probably like fireballs or some sort of magic effect. May involve Rive at some point for that. But today, I want to pick up the torch from, gosh, it was probably a month ago now, the last time that I worked on this project on Observable Flutter. And that was getting the zombies to both follow the player and kind of move pseudo-realistically how zombies move. One of the interesting challenges there was around the fact that zombies are actually just not good at pathfinding, and so off-the-shelf pathfinding algorithms would be inappropriate. So before we get any further, just want to remind everybody, this is the official Flutter YouTube channel. This is the Flutter community. Please, everyone, kindness to each other always. Just like Hump Day Q&A, share block lists, all that stuff. But I've never seen any of that in the chat, so I'm not too worried. All right. Great to see everyone. We're we're getting off to a hot start with state management questions. Well, let's just hit those. Rids Creations asks, can we use multiple state management in a single project? Yeah, absolutely. The higher level you go, the more that might lead to confusion on net, but block itself uses provider. And so sometimes I'll use provider for top level global things and block for page level things. I haven't personally mixed RiverPod with others, but I'm sure you can. I wouldn't, it's not like the more you use, the better your code will be. So you'd want to have a plan and a reason why you were introducing a second one, but they shouldn't, they shouldn't clobber each other or step on each other's toes unless you tell them to. All right. So let's get into it, I guess. Now, I do have an initial opening question to ask everybody, and I want to I'd love folks' opinions on it. So I've never done anything with flocking algorithms before, and last night I was doing a little homework and just kind of getting prepared for this. And first of all, realized that flocking algorithms are, I kind of need more like steering algorithms, a subtle difference. Flocking algorithms make things behave like flocks, like, birds or schools of fish or something. And that's not really how zombies behave. So probably not going to do exactly that. But then even beyond that, as I was just exploring some primitive steering operations, I was realizing, well, actually, before I get into that, let's talk about why I even want a steering operation. So I'm going to run the game so we can all see it in its current state. Let's see. Hey, good to see you, Muaz. Let's see. RiverPod is supposedly compatible with Flutter with a little work. It's definitely compatible with Flutter with basically no work, but usually only encouraged for migration purposes. I don't know if I agree with that summary, to be honest. So here's the game, and you can see the zombies. I've got debug mode on in Flame. Oh, meant to make that go away. I've got debug mode on in Flame, and the zombies just all step on top of each other. And it does seem very zombie-like to kind of dogpile the one human character that's running in their muck, but I still don't think they could all actually share the same space with each other, if nothing else. So the behavior that I want to create is that they start colliding with each other and they just can't share the same space. And that's the goal. I want them to not all be able to have their feet on the same piece of ground. Let's see what got auto router is working. Auto route generator is not working. Why? Well, I don't know. I'm not the person behind auto route, but if you file an issue on the route or on the repo, you should be able to get some info. Making a chat feature in your app using Firebase, Flutterstream. Should I switch to sockets for long term? Well, Firebase is going to do really well for you there. The only question I think is the pricing scheme. And you'll want to think about how you're handling data. Are you caching any messages on device memory? If so, every time the user loads the app, you only need to stream new messages. And that's complicated to build, but would make your app a lot more resilient to the Firebase cost problem. But in general, I mean, should you switch to sockets? Like, probably not. You're going to spend a lot of time replicating what Firebase does, and you'll need a lot of users before your Firebase bill remotely approaches the amount of time that it would take to build that on your own. All right. So yeah, so a couple of folks have asked, do you mean flocking algorithms as in Boids? And yes, that is what I meant. And that is what I think is probably not super appropriate, because zombies don't really behave like flocks of birds. They either wander randomly or they all mindlessly chase the same topic. And so like flocks of birds just have different behaviors. And I think if we implemented the 3 rules of Boids, then these zombies would look like birds, not zombies. And it would just be like, okay, well, that was a miss. So, but I realized that after I made the thumbnail and titled today's stream and all that stuff. So probably probably something like similar but different in like a steering algorithm and whatnot. Well, we kind of already have a steering algorithm, honestly. They wander a little bit and they follow the person, they follow the target. They get stuck on things that kind of work their way around obstacles in their path. So there kind of even already is a steering algorithm. Really, I just want them to not all be able to share the exact same space. Like that's just unrealistic, right? Even in a world as unrealistic as zombies are, I think 2 zombies with their feet on the same ground, or even like 50 zombies, is more unrealistic, which is a funny thought. So that's the first, that's the task that I was thinking, all right, we're going to try to attack that on today's stream. But I did a little homework last night and I realized that my zombie class is pretty messy, and adding more logic to their movement code is really fraught, because of course, none of this is tested, and I don't think it's really just implemented that cleanly yet. There's been no code maintenance. And so an alternate possible option for today would be to clean up this zombie class. Think about it from a testability perspective. Think about it from a long-term maintenance and, not even just maintenance, but like code evolution perspective, and set it up for a future effort to actually modify the code in the way that I've been describing, that feels less desperate than what I was doing last night, where it's like, in the update method, there's the wander function or the chase function. Okay, so it's like in the chase function, we've just got these methods. We get past them, the path to the player. Then we apply some veering to that path. And then there's move along path, which also looks for unwalkable terrain and like tries to dodge that terrain. And then we also apply some like lurching. That's some up and down speed as the zombies are kind of like stumbling forward and then kind of catching themselves and, you know, moving 1 foot forward, but their body's not moving yet. And then they almost fall forward again, right? So that's what this function is supposed to do. But all of this is just kind of confusing. And what I started to do yesterday in the chase method here was add a like, you know, made this not final. So this just becomes a line. And then it was like, all right, now path to take equals like avoid zombies. Don't step on each other's toes. And we'll pass in the path to take. And implemented the stuff in there. And it just kind of felt like this method feels like it should work based on what I've coded up, but wasn't working. And I don't know if it was the bug was actually in the method or if it was interacting awkwardly with the methods around it. The code's just not clean enough. And now this is what I'm wondering what folks are interested in seeing. Oh, hey, got some homies in the chat. Mighty Ducks flying V zombies. Yeah, and then they collapse down into a singularity. Hello, Noe, everyone's favorite Flutter or Firebase DRE, along with Puff, of course. This seemingly unavoidable messiness is why I assume game programmers are smarter than me. Yeah, I mean, I think game programmers. I was talking with Wolfen in Berlin this summer about game development, or maybe it was even just on Discord. I don't know. At some point, and he just said, like, you know, there's no wrong way to make a game. There's only less performant ways. And in some senses, I really admire just that, like, let's get the darn thing working mentality that game developers bring to their games often. But I certainly, it's gotten out of hand for me already in this file. So I need to, I need more organization or I'm going to lose track of everything. All right, I'm going to see what ideas you're all submitting here. Could use the center of gravity, then move around it. So that is kind of like that's one of the principles of a flock is that all the members of a given flock that are within a certain distance of each other each calculate what is the center of gravity within their kind of visibility radius, and then they slightly steer toward that center of gravity. But again, yeah, that's how flocks behave, and I don't think that would be a satisfying behavior for zombies to have. So I'm kind of thinking more basic than that. Any programming SDK is a game engine if you're brave enough. It's hard to argue with that. So involve Paul Mir. Yeah. Bard, can you figure this out for me? So yeah, if you'd like to see if you'd like to see code organization, you know, let me know. And if you'd like to see, oh, hi, Ahmed. I don't think I actually meant to click that, but hello. If you'd like to see game organization, then, you know, let me know. And if you'd like to actually, we kind of stick to the get zombies to not share the same space with each other idea, then let me know that as well. And, you know, we'll pick one and move forward with it. And if no one picks anything, then I'll flip a coin or something. So, well, part of it is I actually don't really have any strategy yet for how I would organize this more. You know, I don't have a master idea up my sleeve that I would just deploy. It'd really be kind of live thinking off the cuff and hopefully farming a few good ideas from you all. But oh yeah, part of this would have been helped if I'd left more comments. I think I know what this was for. Maybe. No, I'm not sure. What are you for? Curve, shuffle, set, lurch. Anything else? That's a different. Oh yeah, so it's just for the way they step forward and whatnot. All right, we got our first vote. Code organization, then the rest is easier. That is what I'm thinking, honestly. What is this game? It's an infinite little zombie shooter. There's no shooting yet. Eventually, this character probably won't look like a mountaineer, and they'll cast fireballs or some way to fight back against the zombie horde. But we do have zombies. The zombies kind of stumble about hilariously. They also don't change their image yet, so they just kind of skate, as does the main character. But they follow. They have imprecise pathfinding, and now I just want them to not all be able to stand on the same square. That is my goal. Yeah, hi, Ahmed. Welcome if you're new here. Well, welcome everyone. But let's see. You're working on what project you're working on? Yeah, it's this game. Was this inspired by Bro-tato? What's Bro-tato? I don't know. I'm not sure. Oh man, people keep another message comes in and all the chat goes up and I click to hide a message but it just clicks on the one below it and pops it up. Not now we want. So Bro-tato is basically this game. Well, then maybe by cultural osmosis it was in my head, and maybe it was. But yeah, look, see, they're kind of dodging the tree, the trunk of the tree. They can't walk through, so they have to walk around it, and then they all stack up. That's what we got to fix. But I think first, maybe code organization. We've only had one brave soul cast a vote. That was in the vein of what I'm thinking. And I don't have a strategy for it yet. It's a little intimidating, but I think it might be what we should do. So let's think about code organization. I'm going to just Command Z out of these couple changes. And now I think we're back to the very beginning. And yeah, let's think about it. I'm going to close this so we get more screen real estate. Is the code size good? I'll assume it is, unless people complain that it's too big or too small. So the highest level aspect of how these zombies move is that they have two states. That's the highest level of detail. I guess we can just const this real quick. So there's two possible states they can be in. We've got the simplest state machine of all time that I just scrolled past. Here we are in the update method. And they can either be wandering or chasing. So let's see what update state does, by the way. So, oh, nice. So update state is every frame we decide, are we still wandering or should we be following now? Should we be chasing? So we get the path to the player, and that's the zombie's position to the player's position. And there is simply a maximum distance beyond which the zombies seem to lose their interest. I'm describing this in the passive tense as if I didn't write it. And then if they're beyond the maximum distance, they start wandering. Otherwise, they are chasing. And set to wander, I think it's a method because it also handles some like timers for how they path, how they like drift to the left and right, which is this wander path and all this kind of stuff. But ultimately, it also sets the state to wander. So they wander if you get too far away. Otherwise, they're hot on your tail in hot pursuit, and that's the update state method. Then, so we get the path to the player and pass that into the chase method if they are in fact chasing him. I guess wander didn't end up needing it, which makes sense. Oh, Eric, got some love for your book. Yeah, Eric was one of the first people I learned Flutter from as well. I remember, Eric, your blog post on how to write your own inherited widget was how I wrote my own inherited widget. The first one, which looking back on it was an inherited widget that I didn't really need, but I didn't know enough about Flutter to know that yet. So, and I still was like, man, who's this wizard who figured this out? Oh my gosh. So it's very appropriate that he's on the team. As you said, efficiency in game dev comes last. So maybe implement a function to check position for each zombie and make sure the next zombie is not on the same pixel. Maybe this is kind of what I was thinking last night. So what I was what I was doing last night was saying the path the zombie's going to take, that's great. If the end, like where's the zombie going to be at the end of this frame? Oh, wait a minute. I think I might know why it wasn't working. All right, let's talk through this. Where's the zombie going to be at the end of this frame? And that's like a normalized movement vector. Oh, I have a theory about what could be the problem. I did stash all the code that I wrote. So we calculate where the zombie is going to be at the end of its unit vector of movement. And then if there is another zombie there in that spot, then what we do instead is calculate where our current movement vector starts to intersect the zombie in front of us, and like only move that far. And the idea was like, if you're going to step this far in front of the, you're going to 50% clip the zombie in front of you, instead just shorten your movement and be flush with the zombie instead. And yet, I have to kind of calculate, like you could be moving in any directory. So you have to figure out where exactly you intersect this square. So I implemented that and it didn't work. But I think I implemented it incorrectly, as I am realizing now as I remember what I wrote. A night's sleep is a heck of a drug. So a couple problems that are immediately coming to mind. One, I was calculating this off a unit vector of their movement. So a unit vector is just length 1. And that is to kind of normalize certain calculations, but they don't move a whole unit vector every frame. So there was probably some awkward interaction between how I was calculating where they would be and then how far they were going to move. And then they actually moved way less than that. But they absolutely ended up still congregating on the exact same square. Like all the code that I wrote did literally nothing. So that was one potential issue. How you resolve the priority. Absolutely. This is why I first thought maybe a flocking algorithm would be right. And then I looked at what they were and I was like, no, that's wrong. But 100%, I think this is a huge thing. If you have a horde of zombies, in theory, they can all take steps together, right? They can kind of be a marching band. But if you've got a log jam, the ones in the middle can't move until the outer ring moves, but they can't move until the outer ring moves, and they can't move and all the way until the tip of the spear zombies move. And so what I even just wanted to do yesterday was implement what I've described, where if you were going to move too far and overlap another zombie, instead you'd move just right behind it. I wanted to implement that, have that work, and then just see how terrible even that was. And then start to worry about priority. But the first part didn't work. Let's see here. Read a few more comments. Could you create the concept of a zombie group horde that controls relative distance? They join the group. They could insert themselves in a fuzzy base formation. That's pretty interesting. It would, such a group would maybe have like flocking type behaviors. That's really interesting. I don't think I'm going to go that route because it sounds like it would take quite a while to investigate that. But there could be meat on that bone for sure. Let's see here. I'm wondering, how did you refresh the state of the app to show the update in the movements in the Flutter game? Is it the same as others? So, what do you mean by that? How to show the update of the movements in Flutter game development. Is it the same as others? Bone, could you ask that question again? Because I can imagine a couple things you might mean, but I don't know exactly what you mean. Physics engine, let the collision physics deal with how the zombies potentially, but I think that could really interrupt how they kind of stagger about and veer and whatnot. I can anticipate there being some challenges there. Got an idea on how to resolve priority. The way I was thinking of it, I was talking about this with some Firebase folks actually over lunch the other day. And my naive solution for the priority issue would just be like calculate which, basically just rank the zombies by their distance from the player and move the nearest ones first, and every frame like cache where they're about to be. Actually, no, you just update their position declaratively, so you wouldn't even have to do that. You'd basically go in order nearest to furthest. So you'd first calculate the tip of spear zombie. It moves a couple pixels forward, and then you naturally move to the zombie behind it. And well, now it's got some, it's got some breathing room in front of it. Of course, zombies don't need to breathe, but details. Oh, how do you update the state of the zombie widget? So Flame doesn't use widgets, but I know what you mean. The word in Flame is component, and everything in Flame is not declarative like Flutter. It's very imperative, which means instead of just saying what is now true, you like add and subtract to values and whatnot. And so in the chase method right here, there's eventually a move along path method, and then there's an apply movement method. You can see why this is messy code. And then in apply movement, we add, you actually just update values. There's no like set state or anything. You just change values and the game loop will come through and pick them up afterwards. And so this position, we're adding to it the movement that the zombie is having this frame. And then check movement, I think, make sure you can't walk out of bounds. Yeah, this is in the unwalkable terrain checker. So that is how you update things in Flame. So we got a lot of interesting thoughts in the chat, which is just great. I think this one's similar to what I was talking about. Can you maintain a queue of chasing zombies that will help with prioritizing? Yeah, absolutely. You could do it by per frame, or you could maintain it. Have the closest ones go first, resolve next pixel in the first update, mark the pixel occupied, and then compute for the next. Yep. Oh, how to implement collisions. I wrote some code. Sometimes character goes through a wall. Well, this is like, you could have PhDs on this probably. Flame has great collision detection. You might be dealing with a problem called tunneling. Research tunneling. That's where you have a single DT that ends up being high enough that the character completely passes through the boundary in a single update and never actually has a collision detection. It has a collision hit. And so, all your code passes because the object was here, there was a boundary, and then the next frame is like, well, it should have moved this many pixels. Is it intersecting anything? Nope. So to get rid of tunneling and to deal with that, you can look into ray casting, draw a line from the old position to the new position and see if that line has any collisions. And then that could be what you're dealing with. Okay. Gosh, people just keep saying interesting things here. I'm actually going to move. Just going to move the chat here so I can read this a little more directly. And then soon we'll start writing code. Oh yeah, didn't know you could do game dev in Flutter. Well, that's what I'm here trying to change. The amount of folks who don't know that you can do this. Randall says, fall off impulse directionality by the square of the distance. So closer zombies are more influenced. Further zombies are only nudged. Yeah, I think a lot of folks are kind of orbiting around this same general idea in terms of how to resolve the priority, which is still an interesting question. Okay. Closer zombie having higher rank is a good approach, but you could look into maintaining a queue. Let's pick an approach and get coding. Yeah. So are we getting some votes for not code organization, but instead actually trying to implement the feature? That's kind of what I'm seeing appetite for. But the first thing, honestly, is just getting Oh, wow. Chrome just did a funny thing. The first task is getting them to not step on each other's toes, and then efficiently handling the headache of, what's the word I'm looking for? Then having them not just be like really pointlessly log jammed, having them be a little bit more of a marching band of zombies all moving together. That could be phase 2. Now, I could try a different first approach to what I did last night. And this new approach could be more similar to how, is the game running? Oh no, I killed it. The new approach could be more similar to how the zombies are currently avoiding unwalkable terrain. Like they're not walking through the house and around and through the tree trunks and whatnot. And that is this check movement method. And this basically determines whether or not given movement that the zombie took this frame was legal. And it's specifically, as the class indicates, because that's apparently the only documentation I was leaving, is checking for unwalkable terrain. You could imagine zombies as being unwalkable terrain. And so how this method works is I say, well, so we pass it, by the way, 2 things. What was the original position and what's the movement this frame? And all the calculations have been done, pathfinding, everything, the primitive pathfinding for zombies. This is the movement that the zombie wants to do. All right, and then we're going to check its, and we pass in that in its original position. So we say, okay, if the movement, this frame involved going up, then I want to get the position of the top center of the character of the zombie. And actually, this code runs on the player as well. And then we're going to look for any game components in the world at that position. I think I'm about to move code around. And if any of the components are unwalkable, then I just zero out the upward movement for that frame. This is really, this is like imprecise for sure, but it actually ended up working pretty well. Nothing 60 frames per second. There's not a lot of movement in any given frame. So this is often like you wanted to move 1 pixel up, but that means that you would clip some unwalkable terrain. So you can't move 1 pixel up. You still may be moving 1 pixel to the left or right? All we did was erase the upward movement. And then we do the same thing for moving down, checking the bottom center anchor of the component. Same thing for moving left, check the center left component, and of course, right as well. And every time we just zero out that movement if it was illegal. And then check for the edge of the map. That's what this does. And ultimately apply everything, and then we're good to go. So if there was a similar method that checked for zombies, we could potentially get a place where they can't step on each other and we just see how terrible they look. All right, we definitely got another vote for doing the fun stuff today and organizing the code later. So that's what it's going to be. Theoretical idea is that the power of obstacle avoidance is calculated in a function speed distance. That means that if the obstacle is near, that means the avoidance is huge. Yeah, that happens a bit in see, Eric. Well, now you know that I'm building a game on the stream. In terms of the steering and whatnot, that is kind of like, that's appropriate for, I think, an entity in a game that's just kind of going about its business, doesn't really care where it's going. Just like, I want to end up in that direction. And then we'll eventually realize like, oh, there's something in front of me. But zombies don't really behave that way. They're just like brains, and they're going to chase the character. So they're way more opinionated. And so I don't think we want obstacle avoidance. They're also just really dumb, right? I mean, even birds are way smarter than zombies. Zombies will just get stuck on a fence and not be able to go around at all. They're just super dumb. So a lot of algorithms that mimic real world living things are too smart for zombies. At least that's how I'm thinking about it. That's an interesting question. What are the unwalkable components? Can't we make zombies unwalkable directly? So yeah, this is probably going to be the first thing we try. So the unwalkable components are currently decorated on the map with red lines, just so I can see them and remember where I put them. They would not be in there in the actual final version of the game. We'll see this when the game launches. So this house is unwalkable terrain, and the zombies are, in fact, not walking on it. The base of trees is unwalkable terrain. And, I wanted you to kind of be able to be in front of the house. I didn't want you to be clipped like all the way down here. The zombies are maybe obscuring what I'm talking about. So that's why the red line is kind of halfway up the house. It's imperfect. But anyway, I just didn't put it around the fence. I didn't put it around these trees. I just only made this map in tiled, and I only put in 3, it looks like. And there are these 3 red things. So that's the unwalkable terrain. And this idea of making the zombies unwalkable is pretty similar to what I am thinking. The only difference would be this unwalkable terrain checker is super agnostic. So it runs for zombies and the player. This is how the player can't walk into the house either, but maybe the player should be able to run through zombies, and they all get to attack you, and maybe you lose too much health to run through them. But I'm thinking maybe to not get like cornered, maybe the player should be able to run through zombies. So maybe we do a really similar thing, but in a different method. All right, let's try it. Oh yeah, get linked to the project. That's a great question. There is, and it's right here. And I've only committed code to this on stream, and there's a branch for the end of every stream. And there will be another one at the end of today. Thank you for that question. It was an excellent question. Oh, another zombie that was wandering has wandered its way into the minimum, into the distance threshold, and is now running up here. Okay. So let's make zombies unwalkable and see how that goes. So check movement. I'm gonna hide you. So check movement. Man, should it be in this method? I think I'm gonna. Oh, interesting. You know what we could do? All of the code could be the same. The only thing that would be different here is like maybe the zombies can't check for zombie or can't walk through zombies, but the player can, blah, blah, blah. It's really just this check. So what if I add like a predicate method as a parameter to this? And that is, and then we can call check movement with different like rules. Let's try that. So the method that we're going to take is going to be required, and it is a function that returns a Boolean, and it takes a component, and it's called predicate. And let's actually just define the 2 that we know about up top. So we can say bool is unwalkable terrain, and it takes a component, and it returns whether or not the component is unwalkable terrain, unwalkable component. And we're going to do the same thing for a zombie. Is zombie. Okay. So now we go back here, and where we check movement currently, we want to pass is unwalkable terrain, and that's the predicate. Oh, we need to use the method. So this would be if predicate, and we pass in the component, just like that. So I'm going to highlight all three of these by pressing Command D. Now I Command V, and we use the predicate. And that looks pretty good. This check for the end of the world part is, this is kind of messy here. So I'm just going to say to do move to another function, because this doesn't need to run for both unwalkable terrain and zombies. Extend zombie with unwalkable component. Yeah, could. I mean, they are different. Like, that's one place, one way where you can get that could be a good idea. It is also a way to potentially accidentally overly couple your code. Now all of a sudden zombies are unwalkable terrain. Later I forget about it, and I'm like, oh, unwalkable terrain. That's like stuff like houses and, roads and things. And I add some more logic to unwalkable terrain, forgetting that zombies are unwalkable terrain. So I think I want to avoid that for now, but certainly worth considering. But I think that's best avoided. All right. So now in zombie class, we can potentially call is zombie. Is going to be very funny if this works. Oh, player. That's right. You also call the method, and here we only call is unwalkable terrain, which is the predicate. It's going to really be pretty funny if this is even remotely decent. Okay, they are getting on top of each other still, and they're getting on top of the player. Interesting. Didn't work. This means it is in line with all my previous efforts here. That didn't work. Huh. Why didn't it work? Oh, I think I know. And it's because check movement does a little more than I just appreciated. Check movement sets the movement. Check movement assumed it was the last part. See, this code is really not good. Check movement is also setting the movement. Fail for code organization. So this movement has been set. So if you didn't trigger on the unwalkable terrain situation, then you just get to do the movement. It is applied. Then we go back to the zombie. The movement has already been applied. And but we pass in the original position. Is that right? Maybe not. See, again, still a fail because it's hard to reason about. I'm going to uncomment out the unwalkable terrain. This will allow the zombies to crawl all over the house. And now we'll see what they do. Can they get on top of each other? Oh, why aren't they following? Oh, they are blocked. They can get on the player. One can get on top of the player. Why are these other ones not following? Oh, they are following. They're just having their movement. Okay, so now what do they do? Oh, they're in total gridlock. They're all just totally stuck on each other. So, and if I get on this side of them, yeah, okay, now they start following again because they just happen to not be like totally gridlocked. But here they happen to all be in each other's way in some form or another. So this is what I did want to get done last night. Now we could think about the queue thing, but I also want to make them still not able to walk on unwalkable terrain. Oh, come on, follow. Jeez, this is really... They follow me down. They don't follow me up. Okay, that doesn't feel like chance. That feels like there's definitely a problem. Let's see. Predicate position is a sum of every steering you use. You should consider that the zombie itself is an obstacle. Avoid the power of avoiding is prioritize, i.e., bigger than wandering. I think that all makes sense. Now, should you allow the zombies to walk over each other? That's funny. Why aren't they walking up and to the left? Weird. Another thing we can do is visualize the path they're trying to take by adding setting debug to true. And now if we refresh, they'll all cast a line for the path they want to take. And we can see what they were doing when they're all stuck on top of each other. So they're staggering, they're veering to the left and to the right. They imprecisely follow. Now, what happens when I get up here? There are still both like the path they want to take is kind of oscillating between left of the target, right of the target, left of the target, right of the target. They're just not moving. Why aren't they moving? That certainly implies, even though it's a different problem than what I set out to solve, it absolutely implies a problem somewhere. Oh, is there an issue with the upward movement code? The top center. There's also a whole thing about like, I'm only checking the top center, but the top right, the top left, those could clip and nothing happens. That's not amazing. But okay, wait, is there a bug for the moving up code? Do they move to the left? No, they don't move to the left either, but I think they move to the right and they move down. They move to the right, they move down. You can see how incomplete my map is here, but they don't move up and they don't move left. Whoa, what am I doing here? So upward movement is Y, yes. If movement this frame is less than 0, yes, that is up because 0, 0 is the top left corner. And we check the top center. And if there's something there, we zero out the Y. And then in the down code, we also check the bottom center. Y of greater than 0, that means we're increasing the Y value. That means we're getting further away from the top left. We're going down. We check the bottom. And we zero out Y. This doesn't feel like this code could like be hitting and zeroing out the up code on accident. What is happening? And then we've got the same issue with left and right. What's super interesting is that this was not an issue before. So actually, I don't know if the problem is in that method. Because when I only ran this one, which I'll put back in, they do go up and to the left. So let's restart. Go back to the game. So the zombies are happy to follow me to the left. And if I bring them down a little bit, they will be happy to follow me up. Oh, my favorite question. Synthwave 84. Great theme. Just name it a feature. Problem solved. Wow. Okay. What's going on here? Apply movement. How How is this different? Is it? No, there's no difference in this code. It's the same method. All that changes is we check for a zombie as opposed to unwalkable terrain. All right, so here's the thing that I was doing yesterday, because I was really just kind of getting to my wit's end on figuring this out. Go back to the world class, not the world map out of tiled. And I just want 2 zombies. So here's some specific zombie that I'm going to get rid of. And then we're going to have 2 zombies. And they're going to start closer to each other. And the one zombie is going to have debug set to true. And the other zombies won't. So we'll hopefully actually be able to make sense of what's happening. There's 2 zombies only. One of them is going to cast a line, draw its pathing line, and it's going to also print some things, because I'm going to start adding that. Okay. So in check movement, I want to see where the people are. I want to say, let's add a debug parameter to this. Bool debug equals false. And now we can say if debug, let's print movement this frame. We want like a before and after. So I'm going to copy the before and the after. So this is just going to be final original movement this frame. Movement this frame dot copy dot clone. Great. So let's print the original movement this frame, and that goes into the movement this frame. Just see, how did that change? And then in zombie, in check movement, and we're going to go back to only using the one that's being buggy, we'll pass in debug to be the zombie's own debug parameter. So only one of them will actually make this print statement. And I don't know, let's see what happens. Okay, still, even with just 2 zombies, an insane amount of print statements. Wow, that's pretty painful. Let's look at what some of these are doing. Oh, there's the... It is just getting zeroed out. So that makes sense based on the behavior we saw. It certainly is not what we intended. Yeah, a lot of zeroed out print statements we see as this was moving to the left and up. Both of those were getting zeroed out. But before, when I was down and below, we see actual values. Some zeros as well, but some actual values. This would be moving down because it's a positive Y value. Interesting. Oh, I'm in the way. I'm kind of blocking this a little bit. Huh. I'm also interested about the length of movement this frame. This is part of the messiness of the code. Dot length is what? I don't know what this is. I don't know if this has already been normalized. I don't know if it's pre-normalization. I don't know. So let's run the game again. We'll see how long that is. I suggest use a stack with push for every object in an event, like a new obstacle, treated like an interruption, and pull. That seems like a thing that could certainly work. I think it would be involved to implement today at a minimum. All right, let's see. So movement this frame. Oh, sometimes it comes in as 0. That doesn't seem right. Interesting. Why would it be 0? Oh, I wonder if that's like the lurching. Yeah, that could be lurching. I think that's fine. I don't think that's the issue. Yeah, because then we're going to calculate no distance moved. There's no new components, nothing to zero out. I think that's fine. The speed is already oscillating like up and down as the zombie kind of staggers around. So I don't think that's the issue. The issue potentially here, like this is a huge movement vector. Whoa, super high. And it is that just like too, man, don't know. Honestly, I don't know why. So what was this one again? This is the original movement, and then it got zeroed out. So we're going to add more statements here. Anytime we zero this out, I'm going to say if debug print upward movement collides with, we'll just say collides. We don't have to type zeroing out. We know that that's what it is. If debug, this is downward movement. And this is left movement. And to the right this time. 2 hops. I don't know what's happening. I don't have a clue. Okay, right now, what are you hitting? Why are you not moving? So it is saying upward and left collides. How? How do you think that? And these don't. Wow, there is absolutely a serious bug somewhere. Interesting. Even though this is more fun, man, this code really needs to be cleaned up. The problems would probably jump off the page if this code was clean and you could actually write unit tests against it. So we see, yeah, it's just zeroing out up and left. Okay, why? So it was doing that after the long movement as well. Long movement. Predicate component. I didn't write the components. Component is zombie. Right, and that is right, yes. Oh wait, we're on movement here, yeah. Yeah, this is right. This is right. These are right. Is zombie. That is what I passed at the end, right? In apply movement. Yeah, we passed is zombie. That makes sense. What is this component? Who are you? Okay. Print. So collides with component at component.position. And this is, let's cast our component. What's a position component? In game world components at point. Oh, okay, we're gonna have to do this later, I guess. All right, fine. So this is component as position component dot position. What are you hitting? Like, what is going on? Okay, so I'm going to go to the left. Everyone's going to get stuck. Now let's cancel this and see what the issue is. Oh, I only put it on up. I didn't put it on left. Brilliant. One of the tricks, or I think honestly one of the hard parts about game development is just that the game loop comes at you so fast. You know, if you have a bug in your normal UI, it's like, oh, when I click the button, the wrong thing happens. You load up the app, you go to the button, you click it, you get some print statements, you read them. This is just a fire hose of print statements. And all of a sudden, up movement collides didn't trigger at all, which is really convenient because that's where I added the print statement too. It's weird. A Dum Dev, funny name, says you lost a video. Is anyone else? Hopefully not. Okay, I'm gonna get to the left here and kill this. So up movement collides with zombie at 553,266. That does not feel right. 553,266. That does not feel right. What were their coordinates? Yeah, there's no zombie at 553,226. All right, so they're stuck now. And we see like up collides with zombie at, oh, so this one is 335,252. 335,2. Oh my God. Are they colliding with themselves? Are they colliding with themselves? So if component does not equal this and predicate, I still don't know why that would only hit up and left, but I feel like that zombie, because the coordinates that we're printing were in the debug zombies space. So I think that's what it was. Did I add this to all three? Component does not equal this. Component does not equal this. Component does not equal this. I sound like I'm on Wicked Witch of the, or what's that wonderful movie about Witch of Wick of the West? Wizard of Oz. Did I add them to the other three? Did I add it to the other three? Did I add it? Did I add it? Did I add it? Did I add it? Did I add it to the other three? Okay. Now that the zombies don't block themselves, they don't have that self-defeating behavior. They've talked to their therapist a little bit. Would you look at that? I don't know why this was only triggering to the up and to the left. I don't know why, but there we are. Okay. So now what makes sense for the next thing? Let's go back and add more zombies and remind ourselves how this worked. Let's give them more random space to generate in. Yeah, I don't know. Zorul says, oh my God, you're just like me. How else would you debug this? You know, you're getting so many log statements. It is just crazy. We still only have one with debug mode. Okay, but they're following to the left. And the first one can get right on top of me. Oh, it's the ones down below still can't follow up. Why aren't they going up? This, we didn't perfectly solve this. How did the change that we just made make them go left? They still go right. They still go down, but for some reason they won't go up. What? Oh, I didn't add it to the upcode. swear I know how to code. Okay. Now they're gonna be zombies in any direction. So, oh, the dude is stuck. Why won't the guy move? What? Interesting. I think that was an unrelated, like, some other bug that didn't actually have to do with the code. Okay, they follow to the left and they don't get on top of each other. Maybe this is like too much. I'd kind of want them to like kind of be able to get on top of each other, but that's probably a matter of actually just shrinking the box that we do this on. So they could even have like an inner component that you could maybe treat that. Yeah, we could have like the zombie collision box that could be smaller. It's a nested component, and that would allow them to like get a little tighter than this. I mean, this is like a religious school's high school dance, arms distance, everybody. I do think the zombies would kind of pack in a little bit more like sardines than that. But this actually isn't bad. And they do kind of move enough. I think it's just because there's 60 frames per second. If you're blocked behind somebody, you only have to wait 16 milliseconds maybe before they get out of your way and then you move. Or even if you're behind, like right now, the last one's behind like 10, you gotta wait, 160 milliseconds? So that's not so bad. This kind of works. What do we think? What do we think? Let's play with getting them to like pack in a little bit tighter. I think that would be kind of cool. And then I think we can call this particular feature done. Maybe we can still move on to some code organization. So in the zombie class, there was still the issue of these two things not working together. I definitely want that to work. Definitely want that to work. Oh, thanks. Akin Fev. Oh, they're moving fast, and they are absolutely dogpiling again. Oh, so these methods, like, they just don't. Somehow calling them both is, yeah. Check movement applying the movement isn't okay because they're each applying the movement. So I think calling it twice is basically doubling their speed or some such. And it's just silly. So we definitely need to change how check movement works. I think that's what's going on. So check movement should now maybe return a vector 2 for the movement that you're going to do, and we'll apply it at the end. So can probably get rid of a bunch of these print statements. It's really funny. Last night, I also wasted time having the zombies collide with themselves. And I told myself I wasn't going to do that this morning. And then I did. And then I totally did. That's just between us. Don't tell anyone I said that. All right, so we're applying the movement here, and that is a no-go. So instead, we're going to return movement this frame. Then we can also have a method down here that will be check out of bounds. And this we'll call just once, but it is basically these lines of code. So that's good. So check out of bounds will go at the end. And these things will now, so we've got movement this frame, and that I think just goes like this. Final, no, you will now just be a vector 2. I'm suspicious about this line where we add the movement here. I'm real suspicious of this line. This looks wrong. Real wrong. Like super wrong. I think we want to call it at the end, and then also movement this frame is going to come back out of this. Why were we calling that there? And then in movement this frame, I was saying position equals original position dot add. I actually don't know why these aren't going well together, because I was saying the position equals the original position dot add, and you should be able to run this code 100 times, and it's not going to keep building up the position value because original position is fixed, right? Original position isn't being mutated. I don't actually know why that didn't. Sorry, folks. I may have just disappeared. I accidentally hit the back button on my browser. Not how you intend to live stream. So I really want to get to the bottom of that. That is bugging me. I want to see how this works now. So, and the player is also going to have to be changed, I believe, because the player also just calls check movement. And so this is going to have to say movement this frame. You know what? Let's run the game now. I think the player should be able to go anywhere they want, right? Oh, fake update the position so our anchor calculations take into account what movement we want to do this turn. I left a good comment on the player class. Thank you, past self. That's why this was here. And that's why the method took in the original position and ran this way. Okay, so things are starting to make a little sense. This also means we're going to say this is now position equals original position with the cascade operator. Is this making sense to anyone? Is the hitbox for zombies a square? It is square. It's actually just their entire component space. They don't have a formal hitbox yet. And so, yeah, it's just square. But I think maybe a circle would be better. Okay. Refresh. How are we doing? All right, the zombie is not able to get on. Only one is, and the others are not. And this is pretty good. And now we're able to do both. Yes, we're calling both methods, and their speed has not been doubled. They're back to the intended speed. And let's make sure they can't go through the house. They can't. And they're still kind of getting in each other's way, being idiots. Wunderbar. Okay. That's pretty good. Uh-oh, Rahul Jr. has become lost. How can we help you be found? Please, what can you see? Describe your environment, and we will guide you back in. What is happening, Rahul Jr.? Not so bad. I feel okay about this, other than the fact that the spaghetti code problem, I keep trying to move this line down. The spaghetti code problem is just growing. Things like, this comment being absentee made this whole function like not make sense to me. It's real delicate. And this function looks a lot like the same function in the player class. So there's just so much code organization that could be done. These could maybe be mix-ins. There could be some movement engine class that we pass into components that those could maybe have mix-ins or something. I don't know. So we are getting some votes to clean things. All right. Maybe this is fine to, I'm going to commit this and we can move on. Yeah. Then we'll try to clean some stuff. So my dog was sick last night and woke me up every 90 minutes to go outside. He also will only go to the bathroom on a full walk. Yes, I know. So like 4 times in the middle of the night last night, I was walking all the way around the block so my dog could be sick. And I may not go the full 2 hours today. I'll just say that. This looks correct. I do want to commit you. Oh, check movement. I didn't actually finish. Oh yeah, I had a theory that the player would be able to walk wherever they want, and they can. Nice. So let's fix this in the player class, and then we'll be in a better spot. So movement this frame is going to come back out of this method. You're no longer final. You're just a vector 2. And then we say position equals original position with add movement this frame. Absolutely wonderful. Okay, now we're ready to commit stuff. So the player, get in the pot. The world, let's just get rid of some of this code instead of commenting it out. I don't think we need this debug anymore for this. We can maybe add it again later if we want. That's looking good. In the pot. Zombie. Nope, I'm not going to keep that. Zombie.dirt. No, the default value is going to go back to false. See? No. Yeah, there we go. All right, what else is in this change? Sure. Fine. Fine. All important comment. We definitely want this. Wow, what a small diff. Amazing. What a tiny diff. And then in movement, also a little bigger, but still not that advanced. Original movement, this frame. Did I end up using this? No, this was for a print statement. You can go away. Looking good, looking good, looking good. Don't need you anymore. All right. Nice. Zombies now give each other space. How courteous. Woo! All right. My favorite question. I do always love being asked this. The VS Code theme is, drumroll please, Synthwave 84. Synthwave 84, very fun. I recommend it if you want to have a delightful time. If you don't want to have a delightful time, you shan't use it. Okay. Tahir, hi. I'm a man of the people, if nothing else. All right, so now we can maybe do some cleaning. So let's go. Let's press a bunch of random buttons. Let's go back to zombie. Let's get rid of the sidebar. And what I kind of think, gosh, there's literally no chance this is going to be finished in the next short amount of time. Can think about it, I guess. I feel like these components need to not have their movement logic in line. Like, look at how freaking long the zombie class has become, and all it does is stumble around the map. So it doesn't attack yet. You know, we haven't added anything. Imagine like the zombie also is attracted to noise or something, right? So if the player walks over certain terrain, it makes noise, and that's a focal point. Gosh, this zombie class could just become so big, so unwieldy. So I think it needs to take in classes that are both like like a target finding class. So I don't know what to name that. It feels like something that should have a really cute, fun name. It also is going to need something to actually walk, to chase whatever the target finding class has returned as like the priority for this round. And then it could take in other things as well for other behaviors that come down the line. And those classes could potentially be more, those classes could be, I think, a lot more easily tested. Oh, Rahul, what a sad thought. You can't be a coder if you're smiling. Yeah, you can. I mean, we're here to have fun, So, okay. Oh, my dog's coming in. If he indicates that he needs to go outside, I will have no choice but to take him outside. How you doing, bud? How's your tummy feeling? I know, buddy. All right, I think he's okay. He just wanted to make sure I was here. Good boy. Thanks for waking me up last night instead of going in the house. For anyone who likes pictures of huskies, just follow me on Instagram. Wow, I've never said that out loud before. It's mostly just pictures of my dog, and he's really cute. Okay, so having some kind of movement engine that this thing gets that's passed in, I think would be a really nice next step. Honestly, after an hour and 20 minutes in, Rahul, I knew you were joking. An hour and 20 minutes in and not planning on even going the full 2 hours, I think code cleanup will be good for the next stream. Next stream, I have a fun guest lined up. I have to confirm with them that they're still available next week, but the next stream when I work on this game, I think I'm just going to call it now, maybe take a couple questions. There's some questions unrelated to the game that I haven't been getting to. So let's do a little, what are my branch names here? Realistic enemies. Okay. So this would be git, checkout, branch, chapter. What was my naming scheme? Full word episode dash episode number dash name. Okay. Git, checkout, branch, episode 6. And this is maybe zombie personal space. We'll call it that. And I'm going to push this to origin and same name, episode 6, zombie personal space. I don't actually know if I have to type this in this command. The git CLI is quite a beast. So now, if you go here, we should see the latest diff that no one without watching this episode will believe took a full hour and 20 minutes. All right, I'm gonna scroll around and look for some specific look for any questions, and then we'll call it. Folks asking about editors. I think whatever you like. I like VS Code personally. I know Android Studio people are apparently there are some features Android Studio has that are just incredible, and VS Code maybe lacks. I know VS Code is a lot easier to build extensions for, so maybe VS Code will catch up one day. Of course, it's not the editor; it's the specific plugins for Dart and Flutter that I'm talking about. VS Code is caught up in many ways, on many fronts. What do you suggest for connecting players together, like SignalR and WebSocket? How can we do it in Flame? Yeah, that's a super interesting question. So, connecting players together requires something to sit in the middle and ferry commands around unless you go direct peer-to-peer. I don't know the first thing about that. I've never done peer-to-peer in my life. That's actually not true. I had one peer-to-peer homework assignment in my networking class in college, and I don't remember anything about it. So I've functionally never done it in my life. But you probably don't want peer-to-peer. You probably want a centralized server, and you can either use something like Nakama, which has, it's kind of like Heroku from 10 years ago, but just for games. Or primarily for games. So that's an option. You can also just have your own Steam. You can have your own server. You can do this with Dart as well on the server, open WebSockets to it. And you could have a Redis instance where you kind of use its pub sub mechanism and games, all the connected clients, subscribe to the channel for their game ID. And then they push messages in. Any server drops those messages on the, in PubSub or in Redis on that channel, and then it'll broadcast out to the other games that are listening. You can even have observers with that strategy. So that is a way to do that. There are a lot of other ways, I presume. All right, continuing to scroll up and looking for any other. Well, this was kind of an interesting one. Sorry, I missed this. Theto, I don't know if you're still here. With all those prints, is this not resource intensive? Well, maybe, but they're not going to stay in for the final game. So they're certainly not so resource intensive that they are prohibitive for debugging. Random dev errors. I remember Unity added an option for colliders because it occurs very often. Yeah. I mean, there are colliders in, whatchamacallit has colliders as well. Flame. But the difference, the reason I'm not using them is the colliders, they apply after you move, so like a collision detection here, if you're right next to each other, but you're not overlapping, you're not colliding yet. But for my purposes, now neither thing can move anymore in this direction, right? Because they're in each other's way. But collision detection hasn't happened yet. Collision detection will only happen once they start clipping ever so slightly, right? 1 pixel. But now they're sharing space in this awkward way. And if I define the hitboxes to mean anything, then they shouldn't be able to do that. And that's like, I just hit something. I'm sorry if that made noise. That's why I'm not using the collision detection in Flame. You might be talking about like the rigid bodies from Unity, but I still think that's like still mostly collision detection. All right. Scrolling. I think I've maybe hit them all now. I'm going to go back to the bottom. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it out to India. Sorry, I did a lot of travel this summer and I have to focus on some heads down work right now. But I know that event is going to be incredible. Oh, we got another smiler, another happy camper at the keyboard. The next episode should be in 1 week. I currently have a guest lined up. I owe them an email to confirm that that's what we're doing. And then, next week will not be about this game. It will be quite fun if the guest is still available. And then I'll get back to this game at some point in the future. Wow, here's a hot take for the ages. Sean Pizza Spark says, in my opinion, you don't need an IDE for Flutter. Okay, you, sir, are in a distinct minority. I would recommend for almost everyone to use an IDE. How to start is Dart for me as a beginner. There's a lot of great classes, a lot of great courses online, some on YouTube, and I would use an IDE. Just my 2 cents. What's the best database for Flutter for local storage of mobile app development? Well, I think your options there are SQLite if you need relations and joins and whatnot. I think most people do not need joins in their client side logic. They're probably caching results you got from the server. Maybe the joins happened there. If you don't, if relational databases aren't a thing you've seen before, then maybe what I'm saying doesn't make any sense. But also, if relational databases aren't a thing you've seen, then you definitely don't want SQLite. And then you'd be looking at either Hive or ISAR. ISAR. Oh, yep. And someone else said the same thing. It's same developer. ISAR was like their take two on Hive, but both are super strong. Do we get rid of all the logic from a game if it's client server? What logic should we keep in the client? Such a good question. Oh man, that's so good. Again, a thing you could basically have a PhD on. So there is absolutely no straightforward answer to this, but I'll try to share some thoughts. And my first thought is that Wolfen gave a talk about a MMO he's making in Flutter at Flutter and Friends, which was the game conference in Stockholm back in September. So watch his talk on YouTube. He is gone pretty far down a possible answer to this question. So I also actually gave a talk on this in Berlin, and it's called, what the heck was that talk called? A Year of Headaches, How Not to Build a Real-Time Multiplayer Game. And I just walked through questions that I was dealing with as I tried to make simply multiplayer Pong, but I was absolutely facing this question. And what I settled on, and what I think is pretty similar actually to what Wolfen settled on, is if you have a shared simulation on both sides, and then you only communicate between the client and the server about what changes the course of the simulation. So you also have to decide, it depends on your game, how important is the fidelity of very specific details. So for example, if you are playing a big online multiplayer game, like just imagine you're playing World of Warcraft. You're sitting on your couch on your laptop playing, and your friend is sitting right next to you and they're playing as well. And you're both right next to each other in the game world. And you've got your two laptop screens right in front of you, and you look at them both, you will notice nothing on your screens are the same. Every other character in the world is in a slightly different position. All the NPCs, they're pathing around, they're doing whatever, they're in slightly different positions. As you start to jump and control your own character, it will be like loosely approximated on your friend's screen and vice versa. And so World of Warcraft has just decided that the minimum granularity of how precise they have to be for a character's location actually isn't that important. And the server knows exactly where they are because, attacks have a certain range, and, whether or not you're in range or out of range is an important distinction. But how precisely that's rendered on everyone else's screen is actually not that important. It doesn't have to be that precise. If a player it just doesn't matter, right? You look at your friend's laptop while you're playing and you realize, well, this isn't ruining the game, so I guess it doesn't matter. They were right. And so what World of Warcraft is probably doing is each client is basically rendering its own character and just treating all the keys that you press and the mouse clicks that you make as like totally valid, and it's rendering what you do like perfectly. And then it gets periodic updates from the server, and it's just going to apply those to where it had those other characters. And it might actually drift some with like network latency and whatnot, and they just allow for that. And then every now and then there'll be a check where the server and the client actually validate, are any of your things too far away from their real locations? And then it could correct where they are. So in that situation, you've got like subsets of the logic in each place, and it's really complicated. Honestly, when I made the game I was making, just Pong, I realized, well, actually, the fidelity is very important because a 1 pixel difference could be the difference between the paddle kind of getting there in time and deflecting the ball or not. And so for Pong, I concluded I needed pixel perfect accuracy between all the clients at all times. And that's tough with network latency. So that my whole talk is basically about wrestling with that problem. What a great question. I barely have scratched the surface on it. Let's see. Scrolling down, we've got some answers to IDEs and local databases. Okay, that's to the end of the thing. Folks, this was a fun week. I'm glad I got that working and didn't use any of the strategy or code that I wrote last night, which is fine because none of that worked. But hey, it was fun. Folks, I hope to see you all in a week on Observable Flutter again, and then again in the future at some event. And until then, happy fluttering.